Land is seen in the form of stones, soil, big rocks. It is not flat everywhere. It is hilly in some places and flat in others. All terrestrial animals, including man, live on land. How does the terrestrial animals use land? Now, some terrestrial animals dig burrows in the ground for shelter. That is, animals like rabbits and snakes, they make their homes in deep into the soil. So this means that they use land for fulfilling their needs. Now, you human beings also use land. We also use land for farming and for building houses and roads. In what other ways is land useful to us? We make use of plants and animals in the forest that grow on the land. Then the minerals, crude oil, and natural gas obtained from the earth, that is, from the land, are very important to us. So, all this tells us that land is a very important natural resource. What is land made up of? Now, to understand this, let's do an activity. Take a transparent plastic bottle, a handful of soil, some stones, sand, some dry leaves, and water. Cut off the upper tapering part of the bottle. Put the rest of the material in the lower part and add water. Now stir the mixture thoroughly and put it aside. Observe the bottle the next day and answer these questions. How does the mixture in the bottle look now? Do you see layers in it? What is seen in the different layers from top to bottom? Now look at the picture alongside. Now if you notice carefully, layers of the various materials, the stones, the soil that we put, now there are layers formed. So our land on earth also looks like this. If a pipeline is being laid in your neighborhood, observe carefully the pits dug for this purpose. You will see some layers under the land surface. Let's learn about the different layers of the soil. If the land has mature soil, the topmost layer is formed by the decomposition of the remains of plants and animals. Now, what do you mean by decomposition? When the plants, when the animals die, microorganisms eat into it. So, they turn into soil. So, this layer is called humus. It is usually found in dense forests, that is, thick forests. The land below this is full of sand, soil, small stones, worms, and insects. Soil and pieces of bedrock are found below this layer of land. Now, this soil is immature. Further below this layer, the proportion of soil decreases and that of rock increases. That is, there is less of soil and more of rocks. Now, this is the layer of bedrock. The main minerals in the soil are derived from these rocks. We get all our minerals, all the minerals from these rocks. This is the reason why soil in different regions is different. The color and the texture of the soil are both determined by the bedrock. So next time when you're moving to your villages or you're visiting some different places, observe the soil. Sometimes the soil is dark brown in color, sometimes it is very light in color, sometimes it is red, sometimes it is black in color. So the texture and the color of the soil depends on the bedrock. How is soil formed? Now, the soil on the land is formed by natural processes. Now, the abiotic components. What are abiotic? The non-living things in the soil are supplied through the weathering of the rocks. Now, what do you mean by weathering of the rocks? As the season changes, we have the winter, the summer, the rains. All the rocks get disintegrated and soil is formed. Due to the heat, cold, and water of the sun, wind, and rain, respectively, the bedrock breaks down into smaller pieces. Stones, sand, and soil are formed from these pieces. Microbes, worms, and insects are found among the soil. Rodents like mice and rats are also found here. The roots of trees growing on the land also help in weathering of the rocks. Now, all this helps in breaking the rocks down and forming soil. Now, the process of soil formation is slow and continuous. It takes about thousands of years for a 2.5 centimeter thick layer of mature soil to form. We know that land is a very important natural resource, but what happens is soil can get destroyed in short periods due to floods, storms, and human activities such as mining. That is why it is necessary to conserve soil, to protect soil, and to prevent the erosion of soil. What do you mean by erosion of soil? Soil gets blown away, gets sometimes it gets flown away by the floods. So the best remedy or the best answer for this is to increase the green cover of the land. That means grow more trees, more grass. So erosion of land is reduced if grass, trees and bushes are grown on it. How? Because the grass, the trees, the bushes hold the soil together and do not let the soil to get eroded or get washed away due to the floods or being blown away by the wind. You know, students, humus is a layer formed on the soil due to the decomposition of dead plants and animals by microbes. Now, the microbes are present in the soil. So, when the dead plants and animals go into the soil, these microbes eat into this plants and animals and break down the bodies of these plants and animals. So, all the nutrients from this dead plants and animals goes into the soil. So, humus supplies nutrients to the soil. Now, humus is also important for aerating the soil and for holding water in the soil. Now, the proportion of humus in the upper layer of good soil is about 33% to 50%. Let's learn how crude oil, that is petrol, diesel, and natural gas, was formed. Now, forest on land got buried underground due to the great upheavals. Upheavals means a lot of changes that took place on the earth many ages ago. After that, the process of formation of fossil fuels from the remains of the living things took place under the ground. It means that all the living things that were buried, that is the animals and the plants that were buried, started decomposing, and thus the fossil fuels started the formation. Now, we get the fuels like petrol, diesel, kerosene, paraffin, and other useful material like tar and wax from these fossil fuels, and these fossil fuels are called crude oil. Land, water, and air available on earth. Now, living things use land, water, and air available on the earth, and so does man. However, the proportion of these resources that are actually put to use are very small as compared to the whole of the earth. It means our whole earth is so huge and it's filled with natural resources. What we are using, whatever natural resources that we are using, is a very small proportion of whatever is available. Now look at the following table. The table shows that land is 29%. Potable water, that is fresh water, is 0.3%, and oxygen is just 21%. But even in these small proportions, the resources shown in the table are sufficient. They are enough for all our living things, for the needs of our living things. But provided that man is not greedy, it is very necessary for man to control his greed. In other words, he must use all these resources judiciously, means very, very sparingly. Only when it is necessary. Use only those things which are necessary, with the awareness that they are meant for all other living things and not just for mankind. So only man can't use all these things. It should be available even for plants, even for animals, even for other insects, birds, and other microorganisms. Only then our earth will be able to sustain. Indian Meteorological Department was established in 1875 for studying the weather in the Indian subcontinent. The main function of this institute is to observe the weather and to make the weather forecast. That is, to predict the weather. What could be the weather tomorrow? Whether it will be hot, whether it will rain, or whether it will be windy. Now, this institute also conducts research related to changes in the weather, makes forecasts about rain, and studies the development related to global warming. Hope you have understood the lesson, children. Now let's revise what we have learned. The elements available in nature which fulfill the basic needs of living things are called natural resources. Air, water, and land are important natural resources. Soil has both biotic and abiotic constituents. There are many constituents of air such as nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, inert gases, water vapor, and dust particles. The ozone layer is a protective shell of the earth. Natural resources should be used carefully and sparingly.
Children, here we conclude the lesson number 1, natural resources, air, water and land. In that lesson we have discussed and studied about the natural resources. Okay, we have seen about the air and their constituents, the uses of air. Then second natural resource, water. Okay, the importance of water and their properties. Then about the land. Okay, the constituents of land, how the soil formation, the uses of that. These things we have studied in the lesson number 1. So everyone have to read this lesson 2 times properly. Okay. And about the exercise writing, that I will inform you afterwards. Now for today's homework, I am giving some new words that you have to write 5 times. Okay. And 2 diagrams I am giving, that also you have to draw in your CW properly, neatly, and label it properly, systematically. So I think everyone have understood the lesson number 1. Everyone have read it 2 times, full lesson. Okay, understood? Thank you.